Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Coming at you live from New York. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center check-in. Just seeing how you're doing, making sure that you're okay, and make sure that we're okay. Every day checking in with each other around spiritual subject matters. Specifically, we've been reading the Bhagavad Gita every day. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. My name's Dal Grunga, and I'm here with Achyuta Gopi. How you doing, Achyuta?
We're good this day. I like
We're
this.
good this day.
This is a good day.
This is a good day. It's a good day, everybody. In case you forgot, just in case you forgot. What makes it a good day?
It
You want to
is.
elaborate on that, or you're hoping that I would just move on from that question?
No, it's okay. Um, you know, it's an appearance day of an amazing saint who happens to be one of my most favorite personalities ever. So it is a
Shri
good day.
Nityananda Prabhu,
Woohoo!
the appearance day. We don't always say birthday, we say appearance day, because it's the idea that we're eternal. And so birth sometimes assumes the idea of like come into being. And it's so interesting. Krishna uses that exact language in the Gita. The soul does not come into being or cease to be at any point in time. And so we just say he appeared at this time, meaning that he kind of like popped out from behind the corner and be like, I'm here for a minute, and then disappeared from our vision at some point. And
I kind of
so
like the term appearance day. It kind of makes it feel
appearance
like
day
you're like reading a novel, and the hero kind of just makes their appearance on the scene.
appears.
They just like happen to, and then they come in with all this like fanfare and music. So I kind of
Happy
like.
appearance day to you. Happy appearance day to you. We should change. We should have an alternate. So anyways, today's the appearance day of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, a pioneer of the Kirtan movement in the modern age and throughout all ages. And so today's his appearance day. We'll be celebrating at temples all over the world, including in Brooklyn at the Radha Govinda Mandir, including at the Bhakti Center in Manhattan, and including anywhere you get your local dose of bhakti. Nityananda Prabhu will be celebrated and appreciated. So yeah, that is a great day. Perfect. All right. Should we move on?
We did it.
We did it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're really, really glad you tuned in today. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time.
That's right. That's it.
That's it. That's it. No, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita. Yesterday, we started a little bit on chapter 4. If you're tuning in for the first time, or you have a hard time remembering anything past 24 hours ago, the Bhagavad Gita is a text of spiritual wisdom. And we're in the fourth chapter. We've been discussing the idea of the eternal nature of the soul and how the complexity of living life with that understanding that knowing that I'm a spirit soul doesn't mean that I neglect or run away from or default on my material duties, that I also have a psychophysical nature in this world, albeit temporary, albeit not the highest truth about myself. It still is real for this period of time that I'm inhabiting this body in this life. And there is purpose and meaning to this chapter of my existence in this life. And how do I make the best of it? How do I, Srila Prabhupada would often say, who translated and commented on this version of the Gita, how do I make the best use of a bad bargain? The bad bargain is that I'm an eternal spirit soul yearning for love and connection, and belonging on a deep, profound spiritual level, but I'm encased in a material body that makes it really hard to do that. And so how do we do that? And that was the third chapter of Karma Yoga. And our Krishna now in the beginning of this fourth chapter, which is he entitles it Transcendental Knowledge. And in these first few verses, as we looked at yesterday, Krishna talks about the transference of knowledge, like where does knowledge come from and how is it passed on? It's not just something that we make up as we go, but that there's, we don't exist in a spiritual vacuum. We don't exist in a spiritual vacuum. And so that's where we're at. And unless Achyuta, you want to add to that or say something, or there's something itching on your mind, which we're always happy to hear, we can turn to you, or we can just go back and read verse 1 and go from there. I kind of read verse 1, 2, and 3 yesterday because I felt like they kind of went together, but we can do one at
That's
a
what I would
time
have
or
done.
whatever. Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Definitely
It's
what
what
I
I,
would
it's
have
what I
done.
did. It's what I done. It's what I went and done did.
There are a lot of really cool verses in chapter 4, so we
So
can
many cool
we can dive
verses.
right in and
Okay.
see the
You want to
realization.
read?
Sure. Starting with text 1, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science, as it appears to be lost. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee, as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. I like that part. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
That's beautiful. I highlighted that a little bit yesterday. Also, it was at the end, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time on it. But I also think that's beautiful. And before I rant on that, I wanted to give you an opening to share. If there's anything else on these verses that you wanted to share, or specifically on that, you paused on that for a second, so I wanted to give you a second to elaborate on that pause, that particular point. Or something
Yeah,
you wanted
there's
to share?
several things in here.
Several.
First is the fact that our relationship with Krishna is an ancient science. It is not something that is just happening now. And I love that Krishna refers to this science as imperishable. So not only is this science of Krishna consciousness imperishable, but the science of our relationship with the Supreme is imperishable, which then must mean that our relationship with the Supreme Person is imperishable. And that I like.
Sounds deep.
Not that we should constantly test that relationship. Like, let's see how much it can take.
Let's see how imperishable it really is.
But it should also give us hope that this is a relationship that we've already had. We are simply rekindling, remembering, reestablishing. And Krishna will talk about several things that he reestablishes in this chapter, but one of those things that he reestablishes is our relationship. And how sweet is that? Just coming again and again and again to tell people and then retell people, I'm your friend. But we are friends. We've been friends. And there are so many stories within Srimad Bhagavatam where Krishna appears in so many different forms as an old Brahmin, as a young person, as this person, as that person. And it's constantly telling people, but don't you remember me? I was your very old friend. You've forgotten me, but I've always been here, and our relationship will always be here. And so Bhagavad Gita to me really is a treatise on relationships. It's a treatise on friendships. It is a treatise on what is possible when we dive deeply into our relationship with the Supreme Person.
Yeah, when I was in India just recently, and we were discussing a lot of, we were diving into various bhakti texts, and um, really, when you dive into the nature of bhakti, it really is the nature of love. Like, what is the nature of love, and what is love and what isn't love? And when we talk about love and the nature of the soul, we're talking about eternal love, the idea of falling in love or falling out of love, or but what does it actually mean to not love on the level of the body, level of the mind, level of just material attraction? What is love, baby? Don't hurt me, Achuta put into the chat. Yes, that is basically our story. Each of us, it feels like that's a question and a statement that each of us present to Krishna. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Because we're all very wounded. We've all been quite hurt. And we bring those hurts into religion and into spirituality and into God. And we're just like, the one place the one place where we can actually find what we're looking for, we're too scared to look for it because we've been hurt. And so what is love, baby, don't hurt me? Write that down as the title of today's episode and our number one takeaway. I was thinking of the Stevie Wonder song, um, no New Year's Day to celebrate. I just called to say I love you. That's one since the Bhagavad Gita. It's just Krishna just calling to say he loves us and to remind us, because this is where I was going. Was that we were in India, somebody was asking the question, like, is love learned? And I reflected and felt that love is actually remembered. Love is remembered. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that, once when he asked, like, what is your purpose? Why, he lived in India, he traveled to the West to share spiritual culture and spiritual knowledge. And people asked, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? And he had various answers to that question at different times. And one time he said, to remind you what you've forgotten, remind me of what we've forgotten, that actually how to love and what is love, and that Krishna loves us and that we are loved, and how to go about love. And so the idea of love is remembered, like it's inherent to who we are. We've just forgotten. And so I think that, as you said, the Bhagavad Gita is a treatise on relationship, and it's so much that I've been thinking a lot about this recently, very recently, about the idea of like God-centered self-development. Like there's so much psychology out there and so much self-help and so much personal development, which all has a lot of value to it. Like I soak it up and I read, how to be a better person and 7 habits of highly effective people and like 8 tips to, improve your relationships and this, that, and the other. But just because of the fact that, we've been hurt in so many ways, as you mentioned, um, we sort of just leave God out of the equation. And the reality, though, you can't fully understand yourself without understanding source, without understanding God, without understanding Krishna. And you can't really understand God without understanding yourself and every living being. And so the pursuit of self-development ultimately at some point has to hook up, meet up. The railways have to come together at some point with an understanding of our relationship with God. And so when you look at a treatise on relationships, first and foremost, it is establishing, reestablishing, putting into context our relationship, our most primary relationship with that supreme person. And then there are many places throughout the Gita that describe that when you've got that relationship clear, when you got that down, it then affects and allows you to put into context all your other relationships, how you see other living beings, how you treat other living beings, how you respond to the way other people treat you. And so I love that idea of the Bhagavad Gita being treatise on relationships. And because normally when we think of relationships, oh, with my spouse or with my kids or with my boyfriend or girlfriend or my partner or my friends, but it's like, no, with God, like that's the primary relationship.
And what I also love, which is implied by these verses, is that things are going to go wrong. This
Mm.
imperishable science, as we know it, at many different points was lost. So it's not like, oh, it just got lost one time. Like he keeps, the crux of what Krishna is saying is like, I keep coming again and again, and I'll just keep telling you again and again. Fun fact, this is not the first time he's spoken Bhagavad Gita. And I think that we've touched
Mm.
on that before, but in the greater context of the Mahabharata, maybe 1 or 2 days prior to this war, this one day occurring, Yudhishthir has a very similar breakdown to Arjuna. And Krishna sits him down and gives him the same knowledge that he is telling Arjuna.
Mm.
And this speaking of Bhagavad Gita won't be the last time he speaks it, even within the context of Arjuna's one lived life experience here. He'll speak it again, even after the war is over, because Arjuna becomes inconsolable. And then Krishna says, "Don't you remember what I've said?" Arjuna says, "Not really. I was a little bit stressed
Mm,
out at the time. I forgot. Can you tell me again?" And so Krishna reminds him again. And so in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear Arjuna speak, "I remember. I now take shelter of the times when Krishna would
mm,
speak these words, this Bhagavad Gita to me. Times, plural, because we're going to forget. We're going to make mistakes. The science as we know it is going to almost feel lost. But I
mm.
love that that does not disqualify us from devotion.
Yeah.
Making a mistake or forgetting doesn't actually disqualify us from God's love. Sometimes the thing that we think of as the greatest mistake, oh my God, I've forgotten you. How could anything be worse than that? And then Krishna says, it's okay, I'll just come and remind you. I'll just keep reminding you. He
Yeah.
doesn't throw us away just because we've forgotten him. And that I love. He makes the extra effort to come and simply remind us again and again and again. How amazing is that for a relationship? The Supreme Person is always holding up their end of the bargain. They will come and remind us no matter what. But I love that it leaves room for us to make mistakes, for us
Mm,
to forget, for us to have stumbling blocks, and for sometimes this knowledge to feel a little bit lost. And that's not an impediment for the Supreme Person.
I love that in so many ways. I forget a lot. And there's a couple of things that you bring up. One is I was immediately thinking at the beginning that Krishna also speaks the Bhagavad Gita, not just to Arjuna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, you have the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna is speaking very similar knowledge to his friend and relative Uddhava. And so, there's this idea that, the Bhagavad Gita isn't just these specific verses that were spoken. It's the essence of a message. And also, as you were talking about, I was thinking of Ranat Swami, who quoted, I think he quoted it from somebody else, Ananda Mai, that love is everlasting forgiveness. This idea of like love is forever. Glennon Doyle translates that as love is forever tries. And the idea, it's interesting, we're going to Krishna saying, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. And Krishna's like, me don't hurt you. What about me? What about all the ways times you've turned away from me? Like I'm the one who's constantly having to go and reach out and like put you back on track and like pull you closer to me and call you closer to me, because we're constantly forgetting. We're constantly going off track. And I love the way that you mentioned that like getting lost is almost built into the fine print. Like we're going to get lost. And it's so interesting that this particular place in the Gita comes right in between Krishna, Arjuna's own getting lost. Like Arjuna asks a question at the beginning of the 3rd chapter of the Gita, like, I'm confused. I don't understand what you're saying. Could you break it down for me? Krishna breaks it all down. And then again in the 5th chapter, he asks the same exact question, like, what you're saying ain't making no sense. And so right in between those two chapters, 3rd and 5, Krishna's making this point of like, yeah, we're going to have our moments of epiphany. We're going to have our aha moments. We're going to have, I just got back from India. I was there for 2 weeks. There's people from all over the world. And, we have these big spiritual inspirations. Then we go home to our lives and it's kind of like we just slowly forget everything, and it's easy in certain contexts. And then it's really hard when life gets in the way. And what I'm hearing from you and from Krishna in this section is encouragement that like, don't think that you are lost forever. Don't think that like you need to play the shame game of falling off track. It's normal. At any moment, in a second, you can put yourself back on that track. At a second, Krishna is there waiting for you. And it's okay. And you can get lost as many times as you need to. And I think we as a community need to exemplify that open armed, open door policy of welcoming each other continuously back on track, because we play a big role in that, the way that we represent Krishna's love in other people's lives. It doesn't, and I'm not trying to, there's always qualifiers when you start to talk about these things about like, I'm not saying that therefore you don't have boundaries and people can treat you however you want. You always welcome people back into your life, no matter how they treat you. But the idea on a broad level, as a community, that like we're all going to get lost, we're all going to diverge, and our job as a service to each other is to continuously try to bring each other back into the fold, and display forgiveness, display kindness, display acceptance, because we're going to need it too. You know, what was the Bill Bill Withers, rather? I feel so stupid. I'm forgetting his last name. He sang the song "Lean on Me." Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. And he said, uh, "For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on." So we totally all come full circle. Bill Withers, thank you, Aranka. Bill Withers, yes. The late Bill Withers, I believe. I think he passed away recently. And so, it's like, lift me up when I'm in need. I'm going to lift you up. Lean on me, because I'm also going to need someone to lean on at some point. And that's community. Hare Krishna. We didn't even get, there was so much. I don't know if you're going to say something else, but we're just running into time here. The idea of relationship. Krishna highlights the relationship between himself and Arjuna, because you're my devotee and my friend. And therefore, you can actually understand what I'm trying to say. Like, spirituality is understood in the context of relationship. And I think there's a whole world of discussion we can have there, but we are fresh towards the end of time here. And I was ranting for a little bit. Before I go to Kimberly for our takeaways, did you want to say something before we go to the takeaways, Achyuta, or do you want to go to Kimberly and then say takeaway, or both?
Let's go to Kimberly.
Let's go to Kimberly. Kimberly, our Wrap It Up Acharya on the show. She wraps things up for us and some takeaways. So if you're taking notes, if you're doing laundry, if you're putting the kids to sleep, stop whatever you're doing, pay attention, pull out your notebook, tell the kids you'll be back in a second. Tell the kids to tune in. Come, bring everybody around the microphone. Not the microphone, the speaker, wherever you're listening to. Unplug your headphones and put it on speaker. And Kimberly's going to give us some takeaways. And then Achyuta and I are going to give our closing words. And then we're going to go about our day.
All right, kids, let's gather around. We're taking away what is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
There it is. That's it. That's it.
That's it today. But we also have some other good takeaways too, that we all have an imperishable relationship with the Supreme Person. Love is remembered. It is inherent to who we are. Include God in the equation. And making mistakes or forgetting doesn't disqualify us from God's love. Love is everlasting forgiveness. Krishna will keep reminding us over and over again. Thank you.
So sweet takeaways. Thank you. I'm like, did we say all that stuff? That's good stuff. That's good stuff in there. I need to get my notebook. What's your closing word, Achyuta?
I think my takeaway is that, of course, love just means you just keep trying, because Krishna is doing the same. And I think I'm going to start off tomorrow, especially reflecting on Nityananda, who is the emblem of who is a guru or a spiritual teacher. And at its simplest, the guru is a devotee and a friend. We sometimes complicate it so much. But what Krishna is saying is that the people that he believes to be the best gurus, just like Arjuna, he trusts with the most intimate knowledge about himself, because they are devotees. But more importantly, they're friends.
That's really beautiful and sweet. There's a number of things going through my mind. I'm just going to choose one, which is this idea of that it's okay to be lost, and none of us are lost forever. It's okay to get lost multiple times. I go through periods of life, and I've been in a period of life where you sometimes feel like either behind, or feeling like you're not living up to your potential, or you're feeling like you're missing opportunities, or you're feeling you're not showing up the way that you would want to show up in life, and particularly your spiritual life or other arenas of life. and reminding myself that you're never too far behind, you're never too late, and that you can actually, Krishna's just waiting for you right there. And we have this sense of time materially, of like running out, or time, I've wasted time or lost time, etc. And really the idea is that Krishna's got all the time in the world. It's just a matter in terms of when we want to turn towards him again, you know. And so just reminding myself that actually I'm not lost. I'm right where I need to be. And whenever I'm ready to become unlost, or whenever I'm ready to turn more towards Krishna and take another step, that's the perfect time. And it could be any time. And so that encouragement for me and for all of us. And I love you guys, and I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you so much, Achuta. Love being here with you. Thank you all who are joining us here in our live Zoom studio audience. I said this yesterday, and I'll keep saying it. Please go and give us a review, a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. All of the above. Giving a 5-star rating, leaving a positive review helps us become more accessible to more people. Share what you're hearing and learning from a friend. If you're in New York, and even if you're not, we have both in-person and online community groups, which are great places to make friends, build relationships, and around spiritual subjects. So they're 8 to 12 weeks, groups of people that meet together, read spiritual literature, and share how it intersects with our lives. I'm leading an in-person one at the Bhakti Center on Tuesdays starting, I think it's February 14th. I don't know if I did that intentionally or just happened to be that day, Valentine's Day. Come spend your Valentine with me. I'm also leading an online men's group, reading Yoga in the Dark Night of the Soul by Simon Haas. And there's a lot of other groups in person and online. You can go to bhakticenter.org and look up our beginning Bhakti and growing Bhakti groups. We'd love to have you join us. And as always, keep in touch. Spirit Matters at bhakticenter.org if you want to be in touch about what we got going on. And check out bhakticenter.org for all the other cool stuff we have happening. And we will see you next time, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Be well. Hare Krishna.